Thank you for joining me in conversation with Mrs. Marian McKinnon, head of the Junior Preparatory School at St. Benedict's College, and Dr. Tanya Lennox, School Counselor and Wellness Facilitator at St. Benedict's College as well. I'm Dr. Dion Ursen. I'm head of campus for community wellness and advancement. Today we in conversation and we're sharing some thoughts on how to choose the right school for your child. Dr. Tanya Lennox recently published an article on the top things to consider when choosing a school, and we're going to unpack some of these considerations that she's put pen to. Dr. Lennox, thank you for joining us. Mrs. McKinnon, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Ursen.
Your article, Dr. Lennox, what brought that about?
I think, Dr. Ursen, thank you for introducing me. Hello, everybody. I think it's very, very important to me to make sure that we get the right child in the right school. And sometimes we don't always consider the child. We consider the school and how good or well the school does in academics, etc., etc. And we actually don't think about who is our child and what does he or she need in their life.
Yes, I think it's important for parents to understand in terms of their child's ability and context. Mrs. McKinnon, as the head of the Junior Preparatory School, in terms of your choices with regards to curriculum, that's one of the first considerations that you make. So can you share some of your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Dion. And to our parents who've joined today, I'm sure you're here because you're looking for a school where your son or your child can flourish both at school and beyond. So you're right, looking at the curriculum would be a key consideration because typically all schools would be following the same national curriculum, but it's how that curriculum is implemented that is so important because that is what defines the school. So you need to be having conversations with the leaders of the school to find out what they hold dear and see if that aligns with your own values and what is important for you. So an example would be, what is the school's value of reading? A school that places a high value on reading would be a school that prepares children for a future by loving reading. Children who learn to love reading rather than it being a chore or work will become competent readers. And research shows that if you're a competent reader by the age of grade 3, it's a powerful predictor of your future success at school. So a reading school will have a lot of books. It'll have a lot of activities that make reading fun and engage the boys with that. And so ask about the library and if children have a choice, because we know that if children can choose their book, they will engage with that book and love it. So I think that's an important consideration is how the school views reading. You might also want to look at how the school utilizes technology at school. We know that we do need to be preparing our children for a digital world. So they need to be learning skills not only to enhance their learning, but also to prepare them to navigate through a variety of different digital platforms. Because as you know, technology is changing all the time. So they need to have that adaptability to apply skills in different ways. Something like teaching coding has become a key skill. Not only, it's not about teaching to become a programmer, but we're also looking at learning how to work in a logical way, how to problem solve. So those are the kind of technology skills that you'd be interested in. Another area of the curriculum you'd want to look at is the kind of experiences that children would have. And this goes beyond the learning of knowledge and concepts. It may be going on a virtual game drive, going on outings, maybe having a Zoom meet with the class across the world, having a lot of hands-on activities where they can experience learning in a more personal way. And then finally, another area of the curriculum which is becoming more and more important are the hidden curriculum, the soft skills, also known now as power skills, the kind of skills we'd need for the workplace, something like learning to collaborate. This is not something you learn in the final year of schooling. It should start from a very young age, where children can work together as a team, solve problems, come up with solutions, and learn how to express their opinion and respectfully disagree if somebody doesn't have the same idea as them. Together with those skills are critical thinking. We know that the world is rich in data and information. Computers do that. But we need people who can interpret that, who can analyze it and make meaning of all that information. Those are skills that robots can't do. And so schools need to be teaching children to be innovative, to problem solve. And of course, leadership is key as well. Not just choosing children who are natural leaders, but realizing that every child is a leader and helping them find that potential in them, building up their confidence so that they can take a role in society. So those are the sort of areas that would enrich a curriculum. So it's important to have those conversations with the school that you're visiting. So apart from that core curriculum, we'd also be looking at the co-curricula, which are additional subjects that would be included on that curriculum. Things like IT, sport, the arts. If it's a faith-based school, you'd be looking at the religious aspect as well, if that was important to you. We'd also look at extramural activities. And this is an area that is so important for a well-rounded development of children, where they're able to interact with other children, develop skills, team building skills, problem solving skills, conflict management. So you need to look at what is available and once again, what fits with your child. If he's very sporty, you would be looking at the sporting facilities, the coaching, the equipment. If he was tending towards the arts, you'd look at opportunities like drama and dance and art and music. And ideally, I think you'd be looking at an all-rounded child. So an area where there is a balance between the sport and the culture. So there's so many aspects from that you need to have a look at. And then moving from the curriculum, we need to look at affordability. As we know, there's a big range of costs across different schools, but you'd need to know upfront what is involved beyond the fees. You'd need to find out if there are extra costs with the extramural programs, or is it included? You'd need to find out about possible tours, the cost of stationery, the cost of uniforms. It's important that you know this up front, because it would be very detrimental to a child if you started a school and you found yourself in a situation where you had to move him out of that school because of an affordability issue. So just make sure that you're clear on what is involved and if it fits with your budget. And then finally, we need to look at location too. It's so important that when you're choosing a school, it's in a proximity where you feel comfortable, that the journey isn't too long. Driving can be very stressful if you find yourself in traffic every morning or a lengthy trip, or you're relying on public transport that may not be reliable. And of course, there's the cost of petrol. But I think for me, most importantly, your children are going to have social interactions with their classmates. You want them to be able to arrange social gatherings, parties, getting together on the weekends, maybe lift clubs. And that's just going to be so much easier if you're in the proximity of the school and your children can socialize with children in that area. So those are just some of the considerations that I'm going to be covering. But let me go back to you, Dr. Urson.
Thank you, Mrs. McKinnon. So looking at in order of the 10 important aspects to look at, you've mentioned 3. So you've spoken through the curriculum and the importance of preparation for the 4th industrial revolution, getting your child geared up for jobs that don't even exist right now. And then you've also given us some insights around affordability. And I think here we would look at deciding on an independent school versus a state school, and the offering of the schools, and where you would see your child best fit in terms of your affordability and also the all the different aspects of the school, the different activities that they provide. And then the third consideration that you gave some insight into is location. So, are you choosing a community-based school where you find yourself embedded in the community, and or are you looking at a satellite school where you have to drive outside of your area to a school? So those are three, I think, very important considerations to make in terms of state and independent schooling with regards to the curriculum. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think once again, it's looking at what is best for your child and what is important for you. But ideally, we need to look at these extended opportunities, that the curriculum goes beyond just knowledge and concepts, that they're going to be enriched and ready to have the skills to move into the world beyond school.
Dr. Lennox, I know your expertise is, you're the school counselor and wellness facilitator, and Mrs. McKinnon spoke about in terms of fit, curriculum fit. One of the considerations in your top 10 areas to consider is your child's personality and ability. And how would that be a consideration in choosing a school for your child? Seems like Dr. Lennox is frozen, Mrs. McKinnon.
I think her needs to be unmuted.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you very much. So I said, thank you very much, Dr. O. And I think for all those parents out there, you know, and I know the well-being of your child comes first. Although we look at all those schools and all of the curriculums and everything that you feel is good for your child is and should be the center of everything. Their personality, their skills, their uniqueness is what drives them. And I think a lot of the time, if you don't look after that, you try and squash a square peg into a round hole. And, you know, we want to make your child happy. We want to make your child feel like they're in a good place. And if they're not in a good place, if they feel like they don't fit with the school they've been placed in, they eventually become very sad and despondent, and they start even creating a little bit of anger within them towards parents, towards the school, about being at the school. So they're not even seeing the possibilities in front of them. And that's why it's so important to make sure that that child, your child, fits with the school instead of the school fitting with your child. Don't know if that makes sense.
That's a very difficult concept, Dr. Lennox. So would you say that in terms of choosing a co-ed school or a single-sex school would be a consideration then?
Oh, most definitely, because the personality of your child will fit more with a single-sex school or with a mixed school or with a public school or private school. So it depends on the child as to who they are as a person to see whether they actually fit in that environment. If they are happy with both boys and girls around them and they feel comfortable and relaxed, I think that might be the better environment for them. But if they feel happier and they feel like they strive more and they excel in their academics and their cultural and sporting life, if they're in a single-sex school, well, then you've got to consider that, right? So each child thrives in a different environment according to who they are and also according to their abilities.
So we spoke about in terms of location. So I guess, Mrs. McKinnon, you would find the best school in your area and then look at how does the school match your criteria in terms of what you want for your child. In terms of security, you know, schools are busy places, and security is high on the priority list for parents because they want to know that their children are safe when they drop them off at school. What would you say parents should consider when looking at the security of a school?
I think I can just interject there
Okay.
a little bit, because I think, Dr. O, I think, you know, security for different people mean different things. So for some people, it means physical security. In other words, having security guards in front to make sure that there are no predators out there. And as a child safeguarding officer at St. Benedict's, I know how important it is for the parents to make sure that their children are safe in that way and also in other ways. So, for instance, security could also mean security within the school. So how secure are the teachers? How secure are the staff in the school? And I think, you know, that is an advantage at St. Benedict's, where we have fingerprinting, where we make sure that our staff are not on the sex offenders list, that our security guards are checked, and we have records with regards to that, and we follow it up all the time. I don't know if you feel the same, Mrs. McKinnon, with regards to security and making sure that the children are safe.
I do think that is key, and I think especially in a foundation phase school, we know that the child to feel relaxed and comfortable and accepted and connected, it all ties in with that sense of security from an emotional side and that physical side. And that way they can thrive, if they don't have to be worrying about other factors. And we certainly see that security is so important for them.
I think there's a lot to be said about security, and in further conversations, I'd like to explore that more. I just want to move on to some of the other factors that you've highlighted as one of the top 10 criteria. So we've looked at the curriculum, affordability, location, your child's personality, and security. Now we get to what would parents want for themselves? So obviously the best school for your child, but parents are important in the triangle of teacher, child, and parent. And what would parents look out for themselves if they choose a school? Dr. Lennox, so the teacher-parent-school relationship, what's your thoughts on that?
Yes, I want to implore all parents out there that, you know, it is so important, this relationship between parents and teachers and children, and this triangle of joy or passion within the school environment can only happen if they allow it to happen. You know, we need to realize that 8 hours, at least 8 hours per day, your child, parents, are at school and in a relationship with your teacher. And if you do not have a relationship with that teacher or do not like those teachers, then it's not going to work in general, because generally on average, to my mind or my research, is that parents only spend about 4 hours a day with their children. And if you are not happy with the people your child spends 8 hours a day with, then it's not going to work. They're not going to grow in strength. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to expand their personal and academic achievements. You know, they're not going to be happy in their environment. So that is pivotal to our relationships within school, and specifically St. Benedict's, really. You know, we try and foster that parent, teacher, child relationship. We try and make sure that we keep as tightly connected as possible.
I'd like to just pick Mrs. McKinnon's brain on this as well. And I think personally it is so important for a parent to feel welcome and comfortable in the school environment, because this is where you leave your precious one for most of the time. So as a head of a school, what's your thoughts on the parent teacher and school relationship?
Well, I have to agree on that. And it's something that, as you said, a parent needs to feel welcome and that they are part of that family. And they need to know that they can approach a teacher or the head if they have any concerns. You know, especially when you've got young children, even a concern, you know, if the dog is sick, that's going to impact on your child. You need to feel close enough to let the teacher know this has impacted on him and to have that rapport that you can communicate those sort of things. A parent needs to feel that that door is open and that there's nothing that's been hidden. And I think a school that welcomes families as part of their community with their events also just is so much richer. You know, if you have an event as we have Pancake Day. So we invite parents and they cook pancakes, and of course the children love the pancake feast afterwards. But it builds so much camaraderie between the school, the parent, the children. They all get that feeling that we have the same vision, that they supported all around. And children thrive like that. You know, they don't want that disjuncture of feeling that their parents and the school are not allowed. So in every way, we need to be together, have the same vision, and help that child feel that he's supported from his teacher, from his parents, and that we're all working together in his best interest. And that certainly is an important approach.
So with regards to the following two pointers that Dr. Lennox highlighted in her article, and that is in terms of choosing a religious school, you know, why would you want to do that? And then also looking at gender preference. And there's lots of literature that speaks to the kind of ethos that you choose for your child to engage with when at school. And also, well, as I said, is it the co-ed school? Is it the monastic school? So if you can talk to the two, I think very closely connected points with regards to gender preference and religion in terms of choosing a school, Dr. Lennox?
Yes, thank you, Dr. O. I think, you know, all parents should know that, you know, when choosing a school that is specifically religious or specifically gender-based, there are very particular things for a child and for the family. So, for instance, if you choose a religious school that is incongruent with your understanding and your beliefs, that can cause a lot of ripple effects within your family. So it's very, very important to make sure that if you choose a school, for instance, like St. Benedict's, that is Catholic, that you don't have to comply and become Catholic, but you need to understand that your child will have to also do the necessary with regards to daily masses or weekly masses or religious observances. And if that is not congruent with who you are as a person, that can actually cause a lot of conflict between you, your child, and the school. And I think if you are happy with that, irrespective of religious denomination, I think if you have an understanding of it, it could be positive and transformative in so many different ways for both you and your family, and for the boy going ahead, knowing that you know, he has a place no matter who he is.
Dr. Lennox, just before we move over to the next point, an interesting question from Mrs. Gwini, who is watching our live stream. Welcome and thanks for joining us. So Mrs. Gwini is asking a very, I think, interesting question, and Mrs. McKinnon can also jump in here because I think you both have experience of this. Mrs. Gwini says, I have a boy and a girl and they are twins. We want to send the boy to St. Benedict's, but worried about splitting the two up. What are your thoughts on that? And what is more important, a great school or keeping them together? Sure, this is a conundrum that the parent is sitting with. Can you give some advice?
Okay. Yes, I can actually. And I want to come back to the child is an individual. So it depends on the child. You know, although they're twins, that doesn't mean to say they're the same person. That doesn't necessarily mean to say they need to be together. For instance, at St. Benedict's, I know we try very hard to make sure that if there are twins in the school, that we put them in separate classes so that they can develop independently, because they are originals and individuals. And I think what is important for the one is not necessarily important for the other. So it might be important for the girl, but not necessarily important for the boy. So you actually have to sit with them together and have that discussion, actually, and say, what do you guys feel? And do you feel that it is an issue separating you? And I think, you know, we have a sister school, which is Holy Rosary. We also have a sub-sister school, which is Assumption. And I think we follow very much the same cycles. So even although they might be in separate schools, they will have the same kind of understanding of academics and how things work. I don't know if that helps a little bit.
That helps a lot. So we've had the conversation around the curriculum, and I like the idea of looking at the child as an individual. Also, depending on affordability, you know, what would be best for the parent when splitting the children. So that is a consideration. We've looked at location, so that would be a consideration. And then we also looked at your child's ability. We looked at security, the school's relationship with parents and teachers, and how we embrace a community spirit in a school. We looked at religious preference, gender preference. I think another area is scholastic support.
Get into the gender preference.
And sorry, I missed that. So do I choose an all-boys school? Do I choose an all-girls school if I have a girl child? Do I choose a co-ed school for my child? So what would you say?
Okay.
How do I
Dr.
choose?
There is so much research out there. Honestly speaking, there's so much research. But popular research says that if you're in a single-sex school, generally speaking, academics seem to come to the fore. And this is possibly because there's not so many distractions from the opposite sex with regards to in the normal school environment. And if you're in a single-sex schools, academics seems to thrive and be better, and the children seem to be more focused on what they need to be focused. However, saying that, this is not a guarantee. This is not a guarantee of academic excellence. So that's why I say it depends on the individual and what they need in their life and who they are as a person, all right? Otherwise, if you go to a mixed sex school, I think the research often says you will adjust socially in a better way. You will mix socially better. But then once again, even though that's the popular idea of what will happen if you go to a mixed sex school, this is once again not a guarantee. So as I say, I come back to that whole idea of your child is an individual and an original, and you need to start from them and who they are to decide where to go to.
So, Dr. O, maybe I can just comment on that as well.
Yes, I just wanted to say, so there are lots of polarized views on single-sex and co-ed schools. And I know you're a mother of two daughters, all grown up and into the working world. And you're teaching at a boys' school, so you've seen both worlds. What would your comments be?
I think, you know, in response to the mom who has a boy and a girl, what I've seen is how boys thrive in this boys' environment. You know, the teachers at a boys' school have chosen to be at a boys' school because they love teaching boys. They're not somebody who might see boys as being over energetic or a little bit too boisterous. And they gear up their teaching approach to accommodate their style of learning. Boys tend to need more of a hands-on approach, so the school would have a lot more apparatus where they can learn through manipulation of objects. We also know they need to move more. It's okay if boys want to stand up at their desk, and we also allow more time to have a bit of a brain break, have a breather, and get back to what they're busy with. They also tend to be more visual learners, so our teaching style would adapt to that. And of course, they also have, we are generalizing, but they have preferences in their interest level. So we can choose themes that, that they really respond well to. Very often they love non-fiction. They love learning information about animals and dinosaurs and volcanoes. They also love fantasy and exploring pirates and adventures. So everything we do is geared up to the interest level of boys and what they respond to. So there's that aspect.
What I'm hearing from both of you is, depending on your child's personality, boys' schools or monastic schools will look at how boys learn best. Girls' schools will look at how girls learn best. And co-ed schools will have a mixture of all of that, looking at both personalities for boys and girls, and teachers then will kind of have that mixed approach in how to support the children in their school. So that brings me to scholastic support. So I know for parents it's important to understand how the school will support them if their child experiences learning difficulties, for example. This can be a highly stressful situation, high levels of anxiety, and lots of uncertainty. So if you understand that maybe your child's diagnosed with attention deficit disorder at an early stage in preschool, what should parents look at in terms of scholastic support for their children, Dr. Lennox?
Thank you, Dr. O. Wow, when I think of the needs of children today, I think we must take into consideration both their socially and their emotionally well-being. Okay, so like for instance, if you feel that your child needs more support, more remedial support, or they might have learning disabilities in some way, and you approach a school that is very academically strong, this could crush your child. I have been on the other end as a counselor where children have been incredibly sad at a school because parents have had lots of ideals and requirements from their child, but they're not seeing who their child really is and the beauty of who they are as an individual. And there is a place for every child in this world. I believe there's a place, and I believe there's a school for every child in this world. And I think, we need to keep that in mind when we got to think about, okay, so what does my child need? They might need occupational therapy. They might need language therapy. They might need a remedial therapy. And you've got to keep that in mind when applying for a school. Just based on the fact that a school might be excellent and fantastic environment cannot be the decider for where your child needs to go. You need to make sure that your child is fitting into the right school. So don't try and fit the school into your child's environment. Rather, look at your child and say, how can this wonderful individual fit into the best space possible that we can find? I think, we've got to keep all those requirements and the expectations also in mind with regards. We can't live our lives as parents through our children. I think we need to keep that in mind.
That is important. So you'd say, look at class size, look at additional support in terms of therapists, look at teachers' understanding of special needs in education. Sure. And then lastly, just to ask in terms of where do you see your child thriving, and where would you want to see your child thriving after school? So just to go back to the curriculum. So obviously the curriculum, that's the first point in the 10 aspects that you've mentioned, is will the curriculum assist your child to prosper into in a tertiary environment in the working world? Then you've spoken about affordability, location, how your child's personality and ability matches with the school. What is your expectation of security of the school? Teacher-parent-school relationships. Parents need to feel comfortable in the environment. And then would you choose a religious school or an a-religious school? Looking at a boys' school, a girls' school, a co-ed school, and then the support that your child will get. But I think when you enroll your child in the junior school, you also think, wow, my son or my daughter is going to be specializing in this area when they go into tertiary and into the working world. So in terms of, looking at tertiary acceptance, leaving school, I know I'm projecting 13 years, a 13-year journey. How would the school help your child in those 13 years being at the school to prepare for tertiary and the working world?
Wow, I think, that is a huge question. And I think as a counselor and as an educator, I think I can say with conviction that when you are looking at a school, it is important to know, has my child got support, firstly? In other words, whether it be a private school or a public school, is there somebody there at the school that can journey that route with my child to ensure that wherever he or she would like to go, that they have the possibility to do that? And I think, whether it be a counselor or whether it be a life orientation teacher that is really versed in helping the kids get to where they need to be, I think it's very, very important to note that the journey doesn't only start at high school or college level. It starts right from the beginning. If you make a conscious decision of what school my child will go to, you got to know with confidence that that school is going to almost spiritually and physically hold that child's hand and journey with them all the way past matric and to tertiary studies.
So if I hear you correctly, Dr. Leonard, you're saying you're going to look for a school that shape your child's talents.
Yes.
So if you've got an artistic child that flourishes with the culturals, or a sporting child that flourishes on the sporting field or an academic, you're going to look for a school that can shape those talents so that you are preparing the child for tertiary education and also becoming their true selves in the working world. So just to end off our conversation, we've got a few minutes left. So this is a secret that we're giving to parents now. Both of you, what is the one question that both of you would ask as a parent before choosing a school?
Okay, shall I start with that?
Yes.
It's not a question, though. I think the key thing is to trust your first impression.
Sorry,
Parents have an instinct, and if they arrive at a school...
that question, I didn't get that, Dr. O.
Oh, sorry. So let's just hear what Mrs. McKinnon is saying, then I'll repeat the question.
Okay, so what I was saying, I wouldn't be asking a question. My question would be, may I visit the school? Because if you visit the school, you will immediately get a sense if it's the kind of school where you'll feel comfortable. Ideally, you'll feel welcome from the moment you arrive at reception. You'll be allowed to walk around the school while it's in session, because that would be a key opportunity to walk into a class and get a feel of the learning that's taking place. you'd hopefully see displays on the wall that is enriching the learning. You'd see displays of children's work showing that the children's work is important. And I think if you engaged with the teacher, you would hopefully feel that passion, that she loves what she's doing and that she's doing it with absolute joy and it's not just a job. And you would feel that. And so rather visit a school while the children are there, rather than an empty school. And you will immediately trust your impression that this is a place. And I think, picture your child there. Is this where I see my little boy or my little girl? And you will know from that experience of visiting and talking to people at the school. So that would be my response to that question.
Oh, that's a wonderful response. I think lived experience is important, and meaningful engagement helps with making the right decision. Dr. Lennox, the question is, what is the one question that you would ask as a parent? So we're giving the parents a quick lead into making the choice. You know, what is the one question that they should ask when visiting a school?
I would say, as Mrs. McKinnon said, not to ask anything. Drive past the school. See how it is. Look at the cleanliness, look at the security, pop into the reception of the school if you can in an impromptu way. Don't tell them I said that, okay? And just speak to the people in the reception and maybe ask to speak to the head of the school, or ask to speak, if they're not available, ask to speak to one of the teachers. And I'm telling you, if you get a sense, you'll get a sense, a feeling with regards to, is this right for you? Is this right for your child? When you hear the reception from the teachers, it's exactly as Mrs. McKinnon actually said. It's not so much about asking, it's about feeling if this is right. Just walking into the reception of the school could actually give you that answer. It could actually really give you that answer.
So thank you very much for your insights, Mrs. McKinnon and Dr. Lennox. We're going to have a conversation again next week, and we'll share the topic with you. I am so enthused, and I think giving parents a list, the top 10 list, like looking at the curriculum, affordability, the location, your child's personality, the security of the school, the relationship that you can build with the school in terms of being a parent at the school, the religious aspect or a religious school, gender preference, scholastic support, tertiary. That's a big list. But to bring it all together, I think it's an exciting list, and happy school hunting. So thank you for joining us, and God bless.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.